The episode opens with Phoenix stepping out of a trailer. Lou and Rick have been discussing the mayoral elections and their uncertainty over whether Lou will be re-elected. It also appeared like it might not be the case at the beginning of the season. As Hudson's mayor, Lou has been making up for lost time, and a winter fair featuring regional artists was precisely what she needed to increase her prospects of winning re-election, especially given that election season was rapidly approaching. As a result, Lou poured herself into planning the event. Tim came up with the idea to include an equestrian event in the winter fair because Tim and Caleb's rodeo school wasn't doing too well after Jack was seriously hurt in front of the audience during the rodeo school showcase in episode 10. Low enrollment and sponsors bailing out meant they were running out of money, and now that Caleb was getting a divorce, he really needed the school to succeed if he was to single-parent his son Carson. Tim recommended that Lou put on a showcase during the fair that highlighted Hudson's equestrian community, including its stables, rodeo, and rodeo schools, as the fair was intended to highlight the best of Hudson's small businesses. Lou was initially apprehensive. She changed her mind, though, when learning that Tim and Caleb's rodeo school was in danger. At Maggie's, the three got together to discuss the showcase, and even though Lou was all for showcasing the rodeo school's young riders, it would not only let them capitalize on the cuteness factor, but also allow Caleb and Tim to demonstrate how safe their school is. She still wanted them to find a wow factor to persuade the fair's patrons to leave the vendors and go watch the showcase. However, it was simpler said than done. All around Andy, the new school's mascot, with a mascot outfit that Caleb himself would wear, will be their wow factor. Caleb determined after much brainstorming and failing to get any celebrity that would come to the showcase and support the school. Tim advised Caleb to hunt for anything different because he didn't trust the school's mascot. However, All Around Andy was a tremendous hit with the audience assembled to watch the showcase on the day of the winter fair. Evidently, Caleb had thought of another idea. Lou had a truck bring in a screen that displayed a message from someone extremely special once she had opened the showcase. Rodeo royalty, who got her start at the school, was the ideal celebrity to promote the school, as Caleb ultimately succeeded in doing. And since Caleb was the one who put everything up, it felt even more meaningful that it was a surprise for Tim. Was the winter fair presentation the turning point Tim and Caleb needed to increase their enrollment and attract new sponsors? It most certainly was after that well-received showcase and Jade's message. Tim even had a line on a new sponsor as the rodeo school attracted many new students, which hopefully means that Lindy will continue to improve her barrel racing skills at her grandfather's school and that Caleb and Tim's school will continue to expand. But Lou's re-election campaign and the rodeo school weren't the only family company to profit from the winter fair. Jessica's photography career was able to get back on track as a result of Tim and the fair. Jessica agonized over the pictures she took for Grayson's new clothing line very early in this episode. Despite the fact that Jessica had a great time taking the images and they turned out beautifully, she wasn't happy with the final product. The images were so heavily edited by Grayson's staff, and instead of a campaign showcasing the true cowboy way of life with gritty, unvarnished photographs of actual cowboys, they had altered the images into an airbrushed, glossy, unrealized imitation of that. Jessica didn't want to be connected to anything. The worst part was that there wasn't much she could do about it. Grayson owns the images, therefore he is free to do anything he pleases with them. Tim, of course, advised Jessica to stand up for herself in the hope that Grayson had simply become engrossed in the high-fashion lifestyle and forgotten the purpose he had for the campaign. Sadly, though, that wasn't the case, because Jessica discovered that Grayson is just as false as his advertisements after listening to Tim and calling him. She also believed that her advertising career was dead before it even got started, since Grayson might have permanently tarnished her reputation as being difficult. Tim was aware of Jessica's high caliber of work, regardless what she may have thought of herself and it. He also encouraged her to believe in herself rather than relying on Grayson and her other New York acquaintances for approval. Tim even advocated for Jessica to participate in the winter fair as a vendor. Jessica, however, declined. Tim had always claimed that at home, her images would sell like hotcakes, so he made the decision to take matters into his own hands. He set up a stand at the fair for Jessica and showcased some of her greatest pictures, and he presented it to Jessica unexpectedly on the day of the fair. Jessica wasn't pleased when she first noticed what Tim had done because she was still reeling from the setback she felt over Grayson's campaign images. But after a woman approached them and asked Jessica to explain the meaning behind one of the pictures, Jessica suddenly rediscovers her love for photography. Jessica was astounded by the positive feedback her photos received from fair attendees. Many people bought one of her works in addition to wanting to discuss about her art, which encouraged Jessica to pursue her career in photography. Jessica consequently made the decision that she would prefer to concentrate on actual photographs of actual people rather than editorial or fashion photography. As a token of appreciation for Tim's unwavering support and belief in her, Jessica made the decision to donate all the proceeds from the sale of her artwork at the Winter Fair to a scholarship fund for female students at Tim's rodeo school so that young girls can pursue rodeo and all the jades of the world can flourish and know what it's like to have a Tim Fleming in their corner. It was such a lovely gesture from Jessica, and it perfectly illustrated how strong and loving their relationship is. They are a fantastic match for one another and have been there for one another through thick and thin, and I look forward to seeing them again in the future. Let's now discuss the Fleming-Morris family. Let's talk about Lou and Peter first, because their relationship underwent a rather big transformation in this episode. At the beginning of this episode, their friendship appeared to be stronger than ever after their major argument in episode 12. Now that both of their girls were at home, the two were even happier. Then, similar to how their older daughter did at the beginning of the show, Peter went and dropped a bomb on Lou. He was considering quitting his job and relocating permanently to Heartland. Lou was obviously quite surprised because, before to this early morning talk, Peter had never indicated a desire to resign from his position and move in with the ranch. She was at a loss for words, so she simply remarked that they should discuss about this important choice before rushing off to get ready for a meeting. Lou's strange response was perceived by Peter as a sign that she didn't want him to return home, and as a result, their relationship grew tense every time Peter's future was discussed. It also didn't help that at first Katie overheard Peter discussing maybe relocating to the ranch and became delighted, and then all of a sudden the family became aware that this was a serious possibility. Peter's decisions startled both Jack and Tim, who both asked him what he intended to do after quitting. Peter then began discussing the possibility of assisting Jack and Tim with Heartland beef on both the business and ranching aspects after being put on the spot. Jack gave Peter an odd look for that, and Tim laughed and jokingly referred to Peter as the new Mitch. However, after Tim abandoned Jack and requested Caleb to help prepare the rodeo school display instead of vaccinating their cattle, Peter was eager to prove himself and offered to assist Jack with the work. And it didn't go as smoothly as you may have guessed. Peter struggled the entire time and was hardly able to move that evening. Lou had to apply ice to Peter's hurting shoulder. Even though Peter didn't think the ranch life was for him, he was still considering leaving. If they needed the extra money, he even started to suggest having a local work as a regulator in the oil business or something similar. Lou began to wonder if Peter would be content with a position that was less fulfilling than the one he was presently holding. Peter then reasoned that Lou would genuinely prefer that he stay away from home since she feels better at ease doing so. Lou eventually acknowledged that she had misgivings about Peter moving in with her. They had already gone through a divorce already, so how could she not? It's frightening to upset that equilibrium with a sudden significant shift now that they have found their way back to one another since what they now have is working. But despite their desires for things to remain the same or even return to how they were prior to Peter and Lou's divorce, they'd both acknowledged that this is not possible. Things change, and people must adapt to those changes. As a result, Peter revealed to Lou at the episode's conclusion that he doesn't want to quit his job after all and acknowledged that the retirement talk was a result of both Georgie's accident and spending so much time away from Lou and Katie. In addition, they chose to do something significant for their anniversary to symbolize their dedication to one another, even though Peter isn't moving to Heartland. Technically, their anniversary would have been today if they hadn't divorced, but that's irrelevant. It was wonderful to see how far Lou and Katie's relationship had progressed in this episode. The two did appear to be closer after their open discussion at Maggie's in the previous episode, but everything became imperfect overnight, as is rare in life. Consequently, Katie asked her mother why Lou always puts pressure on her daughters to do what she wants them to do after Lou brought up the extremely casual show-jumping competition that was taking place during the winter fair, and Georgie couldn't understand why nobody in the family seemed to get that she was done competing. Lou made an effort to convince Katie that her daughter's advice, not pressure, was what she was doing as she supported and assisted her daughters in making the best choice. Katie, however, didn't think so. She perceived it as Lou not allowing her be herself, or just who she is. As a result, Lou misinterpreted Katie's words when she expressed them to her mother and began lecturing Katie about how often she is the only one who can make the best decisions for her family. After Katie stormed out, it appeared like things were once again heading south. Fortunately, Katie had done some thinking during a brief talk with Georgie about how, despite Lou's excessive concern, they are fortunate to have a mother like her. And when Lou came up to Katie wanting to talk, Katie finally opened up to her mother about how much she feels like an outsider in their family, as well as the fact that Logan went on a trip with Miley, which upset her. Lou had the perfect response to make. Not just because Lou forced Katie to give up her room when Georgie was there. Then it became evident that they don't know how long Georgie will be staying, and Katie was understandably a little miffed about that. Additionally, as they lead quite different lives, the two actually hadn't had the chance to catch up or truly engage with one another in general. But as the show went on, the two finally got a chance to speak, to act like sisters once more, and their bond strengthened. Primarily because Georgie told Katie that she is far from flawless, that she doesn't have anything worked out, and that she doesn't know where she fits, when she acknowledged that she thinks of Georgie as the golden kid. So they made the decision to confront the uncertainty as sisters together. It will be intriguing to watch if Katie and Georgie engage more in the upcoming episode and going forward generally, because it would be nice to see Georgie and Katie acting more like sisters than strangers now that they are older and more mature.